Hello and welcome to the Larger Than Necessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 93. My name is Chris.
I'm Euan.
I'm David.
No Pawel again.
There's an absence there.
That's fine, because we're here to talk about Tabletop Scotland this week.
Yeah.
And Pawel didn't come with us.
Didn't he go?
He didn't go, no. He let the side down. But the three of us attended, so Tabletop Scotland was the inaugural Tabletop Scotland in Perth. Mm-hmm. So the very first one that's ever happened, and I think it's probably the biggest board game and tabletop gaming convention that's ever happened in Scotland, as far as I'm aware. Which is quite impressive for a first year of a convention. So this episode is going to be all about Tabletop Scotland. So it's going to be a wee bit different for our usual episodes. We're not going to focus too much on particular games that we've played, because we played a few things while we were there. But mostly it's just going to be about what we got up to, what Tabletop Scotland was actually like for us when we were there. So we only attended on the Sunday. It was a Saturday and Sunday convention. Now we think, by the look of it, most of the fun and hijinks happened on the Saturday. There were quite a lot of events and seminars and stuff like that on. But there was still stuff going on the Sunday that we mostly didn't take part in because we were too busy wandering about meeting people and playing various games and things like that and just getting caught up in it. But so to start off with, the convention itself, it was held in a pretty big hall in Perth. What's it called?
The Dewar Centre.
The Dewar Centre, that's the one. And it was much bigger than I was expecting it to be. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but when I walked through into that hallway first thing in the morning, I was kind of taken aback by how big the place was.
Like emerging from the vault in Fallout 3.
There was that much choice in front of you.
Just from
the whole world.
From emerging from the darkness.
Oh, of course.
To be into the light of the board gaming Shangri-La. It was like
arm up to shield your eyes, blinking rapidly.
It was big.
Yeah, it was big.
It was pretty big, and it wasn't as if it didn't warrant it as well.
Oh no, it definitely warranted it. The space was needed.
To the afternoon, the place was actually packed. Like all the kind of most of the free gaming area was all.
And this was on the
up.
Sunday as well. Apparently, on the day before, and the Saturday it was significantly busier by the sounds of things.
The Dave, the guy that organised the whole thing, so Dave and his team, well done, by the way, Dave and his team, excellent work. He put a post up to say how many tickets were sold in the 2 days, and they said that on the Saturday they broke 800, so there was more than 800 people there on the Saturday. On the Sunday there was more than 600 people. So of that though, more than 1,000 were individual sales, as in not people that hadn't bought like sort of weekend tickets or whatever. So there was more than 1,000 unique people over the weekend that attended, and that's pretty incredible for a board gaming convention in Scotland. I'd say that's pretty incredible for the first time. They're already talking about putting on the second one. When we chatted to Dave outside for a bit, and he said that people were already talking about next year, and he was just like, "No, we've not even thought about next year yet. What's going on?"
He didn't seem too stressed.
No. But yeah, so I think next year that number's probably going to grow.
Definitely.
Dave was telling us that there had been people coming from Germany and the US and stuff like that just for this first one. I don't think there was a lot of people. I think most of the people that came were all Scotland based. But there was a fair few people who had come up from England and other parts of the UK. So yeah, it was quite an impressive convention in a massive hall, a lot of people. But there was a number of things going on there. So we walked in, we'd sort of pre-arranged to play a game with some guys from Inspiring Games, who are an Edinburgh-based company. And they had a pretty successful Kickstarter. And I think it was, from when we were chatting to them, I think they were saying that it was way more successful than they expected it to be. They were kind of expecting that they might break even on their game and get a few copies out to people, and I think it's gone a bit crazy. So we'd arranged to play Legends Untold with them, and this is probably a game that a few people are listening to this. They've probably heard of this, because I think this Kickstarter was quite popular. Yeah. Definitely, the more I think about it, the more that I'm thinking to myself, I have heard of this Kickstarter. I've probably seen it, and at the time I was probably skint, so I couldn't actually back it. But I have ordered myself a copy of it, because it's now open to people that weren't part of the Kickstarter to get involved and get the Kickstarter copies. So that's quite interesting. But we actually sat and playtest. It was the first thing we did when we walked in, was kind of went straight over to that table when we saw the big sign for it. Just kind of like, oh yeah, there's that thing, let's go and check this out. And off we went, and we sat down and played through Legends Untold for the first hour that we were there. And it turns out that Dave knows the guy that was running us through.
A very strange coincidence.
In the middle of the game, suddenly realised.
Yeah, in the middle of the game, the guy was like, I know you.
Yeah. The chap, Euan, he's called, who was running us through the demo for the game, I went to university with him. But that was a long time ago, and we'd kind of fallen out of contact quite some time ago. So it took a wee while for us to like figure it out. But yeah, it's strange. But one of the reasons we were mates at uni is because we played board games together. We played a lot of Necromunda in particular, and various other Games Workshop things. So yeah, that was nice.
Tabletop Scotland, bringing people together.
Yeah, bringing people together from board gaming and
Hi,
from
Euan,
the past.
if you're listening, he won't be, but he's a freight train driver now.
Oh right,
isn't that great?
That's a pretty cool job.
I know, that's what I thought.
Decent job. He'll have time to listen to podcasts, hopefully.
Do you think?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
He's allowed to have
In his
podcasts
cab.
on in the cab.
He's allowed the window open. So
Oh. Did you ask him that specifically?
So he can have a smoke.
Does he have a bit of hay sticking out of his mouth at all times? That's
That's
how I
how
imagine freight train drivers.
I like to imagine that that's how it is, and he can pretty much just go where he pleases, rails notwithstanding.
Yeah. Just follow whichever
at
rails.
his own pace, might stop for a bit, look at a cow, feed it some grass.
Do you reckon a cow would approach a train?
Oh yeah, once you're out in the countryside.
Yeah. Wild cows, would you?
Wild cows. Well, yeah.
The famous
They don't fear
Scotland.
the train. You know those cows you just see roaming about?
Yeah, they're not afraid.
Nah.
Not afraid at all.
But yeah, he did an excellent job of running us through the demo scenario of Untold Legends.
Legends Untold.
Yeah, I'm just going to call it Untold Legends.
Yeah, you can't call it Untold Legends because there's a game called Untold Legends.
Really?
So I think it's a video game though.
Oh.
Sorry, Legends Untold. Yeah, it was good. It was like a 4-player co-op fantasy dungeon crawling game.
Yes,
I would say.
And it's aspiring to get an RPG feel in a short space of time.
Yeah. And I'd say it's dungeon crawling, but it's not. They want to do a bit more with it than just monster grinding.
Yeah.
So there's events and decks and all sorts of cool stuff in it.
Yeah.
I like the little dungeon tiles.
Yeah, the dungeon tiles were cool. The different characters that you played as well, they weren't just like straight up, here's a fighter, here's a rogue. It's like we were playing as things like a farmhand.
They were a bit more grounded to their
Yeah.
sort of,
I was a student.
You were a student.
You were a student. I was a student. Sorry, Dave. You were what was some sort of noble.
It was a specific kind of noble, though. It wasn't just you're a noble. I can't
Charming
remember.
It was
Like a disenchanted noble.
Oh.
And what was
a disappointed noble.
what was the other class? I can't remember. In fact, Euan, what were you?
I was a forge hand.
You were the forge hand, yeah. And there was a farmer. That's right.
I was a lady forge hand.
So it was a weird little party of people who, for one reason or another, had found themselves in a dungeon. And I should probably say that there is a sort of big campaign thing for this game. So I'm sure that there is a story, some tasty lore if Pawel was here. to explain why these 4 strange people have found themselves in a dungeon.
Yes. But also I think it's one of these games that you get a lot more out of it if you're the sort of person who can project story onto abstract, dicey based events. I mean, not that there isn't plenty of stuff on the event cards to guide you along, but it definitely helps if you're the imaginative sort, the sort of person who would play a pen and paper RPG. But I think what they said, they're trying to get that experience, but in a much shorter time scale, because a single scenario is short. It's like an hour. Don't quote me on that, but it's
the Raven is sort of. I think they'd be saying it's somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how well versed in the game you are and how the scenario goes.
And you can play just one-shot scenarios, or there are ways to link them together into a campaign. And I believe Euan was saying there's some story stuff that can go along with that. That kind of, there's more to it if you link them together into the campaign. It adds to the game a little bit with recurring characters, and I believe it was, and other exciting things.
It had a sort of similar feel to me. It was a wee bit like sort of like the Arkham Horror card game in terms of the way it felt a wee bit and the way the cards worked. Like that campaign thing. It was like linking all these sort of scenarios together and like monsters that will come back and fight you again if you don't kill them the first time, stuff like that. It had that kind of feel to it in that sense, but a lot of it, like the stuff that you did was all sort of skill based, so the characters all had their own skills and they had like weapons, and I quite liked the combat system in it. Actually, the combat system was pretty cool the way it worked, because it was a case of you rolled like 3d6 and whatever weapon you had various little things on it, little symbols, and those symbols could mean like you'll do a critical hit, or you'll just do a normal hit, or you might trade blows, which means that you and the thing you're fighting both get hit. But there's other things like you can do pushbacks, which give advantage to the next person that attacks, and the advantage just gives you +2. Or you might get I can't remember what the term for it was, but it was basically the opposite of getting the advantage. You got disadvantage, so the next person would get -2 or whatever. And the most amusing part of that was the fact that if you roll really low, you actually hit somebody else in the party.
Well, it's just for the ranged combat.
If it's a ranged one, it's someone else. I think if it's a melee thing, you somehow do damage to yourself.
Yeah, well, it's the melee one. It's you take damage.
Oh, you take that.
Yeah, I got confused with that, but Euan put me right. Yeah, because the idea with the melee is you don't roll for the monsters to hit you. It's
just done in one dice roll,
amalgamated into one roll. So good rolls come out well for you, and low numbers, that's the monster getting the advantage over you. But yes, for the ranged, it's
you get
if you roll low,
start shooting other people,
you shoot someone else.
I definitely threw a spear at one of you by accident.
Oh yeah,
I think, was it possibly you, Dave? In fact, Dave, you took a beating in this game from what I remember.
Yeah, frequently on quite low health.
I was, which was, well, it wasn't an issue for the demo game, but one of the facets of this game is when you lose health, the way your health is represented is by your ability cards. So whenever you take a hit, you have to flip over one of your 3 ability cards that you have in front of you, and you can no longer use the abilities that are on that card until your party camps and you get healed back up again.
Yeah.
Camping is compulsory. I remember.
If it's available.
You can't camp.
You can't camp just anywhere.
Come on, there's spots.
We're not monsters.
You can camp. Yeah, we're not animals. But we did quite well. I mean, the thing is that we were told that they'd upgraded the characters for the Sunday because they found that on the Saturday there was far too many total party kills going on, where people were just getting wiped out sort of halfway through the scenario. So yeah, we kind of had a boost in terms of our fighting prowess because our weapons had been upgraded.
So that people got all the way through the decks, I think.
Yeah.
Because otherwise...
So that you could see all the interesting stuff that happens. And that's a kind of a good way to demo it, I think, just to make sure that people could actually see what was coming. Because there were some interesting little events and stuff that happened. Mushroom-based events and things like that. But we managed to get through at the end of the scenario, and I think he said that were we the first group that had managed to do the push your luck thing right to the end, at the very end of the scenario.
Yeah,
it was just constant dice rolls where you had to just keep rolling higher and higher.
Yeah,
So, I mean, there was obviously a lot of luck involved because it's a dice-based game, but I think they have successfully managed, to get a sort of RPG feel. I mean, you're never going to get an RPG feel out of a board game, ever, because RPGs are so open-ended in terms of what you can do in them. But they've managed to do it reasonably well, I think. I think it's a pretty successful attempt at it. And they do say that, like Euan was telling us, that the game is kind of influenced by things like Warhammer Quest, the old version of Warhammer Quest, which is a classic game. And I can see that. Like, I can see that that's what happens. But they tried to move away from just moving into a room and slaying all the monsters and then move on to the next room. So there's little things, little choices you can make and stuff you can do to try and get extra loot, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I thought I really enjoyed the playtest of that. It was probably my favourite thing that we played the entire weekend. I say weekend, but we were only there the Sunday. But it was probably my favourite thing we played that day.
I think it definitely it left me intrigued to play it, like actually do a campaign, unsupervised, and sort of see how we get on.
Because the fact it plays so quickly, I think, was the beauty of it. And it's a solid game as well. So yeah, like I say, I've ordered a copy of it, and I think they're actually hitting the manufacture button very, very soon.
Yeah.
So once because they've opened up, like I say, they've opened it up to people to order the Kickstarter version of it, and I think once they finish off with that, they're just going to start manufacturing them and sending them out. So yeah, it should be here reasonably soon, next few months, I reckon. So I definitely will give an update on Legends Untold and not Untold Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Inspiring Games, so they're based in Edinburgh, and they seem like pretty cool guys. Next thing we had a bit of a sort of wander around after that, just at the general look. There were various like games shops that were there from all across the country who were selling things. They were all kind of on one side of the room, just sort of all putting together. And there was people selling things like scenery, 3D scenery. Some of that was pretty cool.
Yes, there was some excellent 3D scenery for your miniatures games or RPGs as well. But yeah, I was impressed with that. There's a lot of merchandisey type stuff as well.
Merchandisey stuff, some just bits and bobs.
Sweet t-shirts.
Yeah. A lot of meeple based things.
Yes, indeed.
Meeple based items.
But then we wandered over to... We kind of got grabbed by Bez.
Oh yeah.
That was the next thing we did. We played Bez Shariani. Is that her name?
Shariani.
Bez Shariani.
Yep.
So we were grabbed by Bez Shariani, and Bez has a little game design company, I suppose. Stuff by Bez, I think it's called. And Bez had designed a pretty funky little box of cards that you could play various games with. And Euan, you actually ended up buying a copy.
Yeah, I thought it'd be an interesting one to have about, because there's a variety of games you can play with it. It's quite a simple deck. There's basically 4 elements to the cards. You've got 2 letters on every card, one at the top, one at the bottom, and a border. And there's a number on the card, which found out doesn't actually have, as far as I can tell, any bearing on any of the games. It just tells you
I think
how many of that.
It's the card distribution.
Yeah.
I think she said there aren't any games yet that actually use it.
Potentially, I don't know how you would if it's just the card. But I'm sure.
It's just there to let you know.
Yeah, and she was accepting game ideas as well.
Yes, I noticed that on the website.
Yeah, it's stuffbybez.com, I believe. Yeah, there's a variety of games you can kind of play. We had to go to a couple. What was it, Phrasal, which involved putting down 2 cards. So you had 4 letters, and you had to come up with a phrase using basically. It'd be a 4-letter phrase, and
4-word phrase.
Words,
yeah.
4-word phrase, starting letter, using the letters that were out in front of you.
But it was also based on an idea, because you were also, whoever was the judge that round got dealt one of the cards, and they had to look at those letters and then say, well, what are these letters saying to me about theme?
Yeah.
And I got a pretty easy one, because the one that was dealt in front of me was IQ. So I was just like, well, that's intelligence then. Let's hear a funny phrase about intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think the first round of it we played, we were all just kind of standing staring at it, just being like, this is too early in the morning. We've just driven from Edinburgh.
It's one of those games that requires you to be a little bit
alert, probably full of coffee. That would probably help. But we started to get in the swing of it. We also played a couple of other things that you can play with this little box.
Played Wibble.
We played Wibble,
I believe.
And I think that was the original game that Bez had come up with.
Yeah, that's a sort of word game. I'm remembering Grabble now, the one where you sort of have to pick up basically all the cards and have them in a sort of order where either there's a matching letter or a matching border.
I think with Wibble we dealt out two of the cards from the deck.
Yeah.
And everyone who was playing, you just had to shout out a word that used two of the letters. So you've got four, because there's
each card.
One from each card.
One from each card. Yeah, so we've got four letters to choose from. So you have a word that uses two of the letters, one from each card. And then whoever says it first gets to take both the cards?
It's one of the cards,
yes,
and then you
take
keep that in front of you as it's basically like a handicap. The better you're doing, you have like an extra card, and you have to incorporate that into. So you'll draw another. You'll get rid of one of the cards. Someone will take one. You draw another two cards, and then everybody has to come up with a word using that one letter from each of those. But the person, if you have any cards in front of you as well from previous wins, you have to incorporate one of the letters from that card as well. So you get to the point, because I think you need to get like 3 points to win.
Three cards to end the round.
You've got to have something with four letters.
Five? Oh no,
Five,
four. No, because
yeah.
the third one ends it. Yes, sorry.
So there's it does get more difficult as the better you're doing.
It does. It can be difficult.
Yeah.
Obviously, you try and take from your choice of two cards. You try and take the one that's better for making words with.
Yeah, one with an E in it is definitely useful.
Yes,
or an S or something like that. I liked Bez's strategy in that game of just shouting the longest word that you know.
Just hoping it, because I noticed after each one, kind of go, wait, is that right? Oh, yeah.
But Bez did kind of wipe the floor with us at that.
Yeah,
I think Bez was being kind of nice to us when we were playing that game and not trying too hard, because Bez did join in.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point where I think one of us won a round, and then Bez just went, "No, I'm going to win this next one."
Absolutely destroyed us.
Absolutely destroyed us with it so quickly. And yeah, well, we mentioned Grabble, and Grabble was just a silly. I've played similar games to Grabble over the years, but it's just the case of you just spread all the cards out across the table, and you've just got to. You start off with a card in your hand, and it's the cards. The cards have got two letters on and a sort of patterned border. And what you had to do is you had to pick up a card that either had one of those letters on or the same type of border, and you just kept doing that until somebody shouted Grabble. Yeah,
because you can voluntarily end the game.
Yes,
I think you get an extra 10 points for
doing it early.
Yeah,
and the person that is last to shout Grabble doesn't get 10 points. Everybody else does. The person that doesn't, doesn't get any of the bonus points. And then you basically just add up how much points you got. Well, you pass the deck you pass your hand to your left actually, and that person counts up your points and makes sure that you didn't cheat.
Yeah,
which your friend Ian did.
Oh yeah. And he scored nil points for his.
You get no points if you cheat. You score 0.
Yep.
Ian learned a harsh lesson that day. I'm going to keep my eye on him in any future games that we play, because I'm sure he's up to hijinks.
Oh yeah, well it's exposed them. It's the raw nature of that game. Kind of breaks down people's strategy.
And we also played another game designed by Bez,
Yogi. Yeah.
Which is a silly game, a really silly game, but it was a lot of fun because it was just it made us look like complete fools in the middle of the floor. And Yogi was just basically a case of it was just a deck of cards that basically told you to do various things. It was almost like Twister, but in a more stupid way without a mat. So it was like you would pick up a card and it would tell you, this card has to touch your left ear. So you have to make it touch your left ear, and you can hold it there if you want. But then the next thing you pick up a card, it might say, your right hand has to stay palm down. And then the next thing you pick up a card, it would be this card has to go on your left forearm. And you would just keep going until one person breaks one of the rules that they have and then they're out, and you just keep going again until there's only one person left. Yeah. And by the end of that game, we were all basically
just contorted and looking stupid.
I think that was the only game I won that weekend.
Well, you did well. I mean, it requires a lot of dexterity. I mean, the main thing that sort of gets you out of the game is like going for a new card, really.
Yeah, that's it, because you have to try and pick up a new card while still balancing all these other cards on your various body parts.
Well, I think I got to the point where I had to be balancing a card on my left, on the top of my left hand.
Yeah.
While also having my right thumb pointing downwards at all times. So I was kind of like, and then attempting to pick up a card, it just became impossible. I think I also had one in my elbow as well. So
yeah. Because I had one on my left forearm, but also I couldn't really use my right hand anymore because my fingers were doing various things that I couldn't really pick anything up. So there was a lot of just sort of like bending at the knees and trying to pick up a card while keeping my left hand face down at all times. It's a silly game, but I can see like people having a lot of fun with that. Anything that you could play with kids, I think, and they would absolutely love it.
Yeah, definitely. They'd find it hilarious. I struggled to remember what cards I had. That was my problem.
Oh yeah.
Like halfway through the game, I was like, "Wait, why am I doing this?" Like, why I can't remember how I got into this position. So I don't know what it is I need to do in order to not break the rule.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun, definitely. So those they weren't expensive. The decks of cards as well.
£10 for the. Well, I think 12 normally. I think they would.
It was convention prices. It was a tenner.
Yeah,
but it's definitely definitely Wibble. The box of Wibble cards is probably a fun thing to just have lying about.
Yeah,
because like I say, you can play various games, and the games are all sort of slightly different from each other, and
they're quick to play,
and they're quick to play, yeah. And they can take quite a few players, I think. So yes, stuff by Bez. And you're right, it is stuffbybez.com. I just checked that. Okay. So yeah, go and check that out. Bez is also on Twitter and stuff. She's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we went over to the playtest zone. And this is where we met Ian McAllister from a fellow Scottish podcast, The Giant Brain. I had a bit of a chat with him. And he got us involved in playtesting a game, because Ian's quite big. In Edinburgh, he does a lot of the playtesting groups. I think they're on maybe once a month. Yeah, once a month, I'm pretty sure he said. So he gets people that are designing games to bring them in to wherever it is their venue is that month, and people will play them and give feedback. And I think he's pretty successful with it. And he's trying to expand things out to other cities as well and get other people to do playtesting groups, because it seems to be that there's not a lot of them around in Scotland. So I think he's trying to really push that. But yeah, we got involved in playtesting a game called Tellus Exploration.
Tellus.
Well,
Tellus.
It's been spelled two different ways in two different places because, and I can't really confirm right now. So it's either Tellus or Tellus. So it's either Telis or
Tellus
Tilis.
is Tellus Exploration.
Is that the full title?
Yeah. They hadn't included any of the Tellus Savalis artwork because they hadn't licensed it by the time we.
I'm not sure Tellus Savalis featured very much in this game. I was just taking a
punt on that. Well, there is a Kojak board game that I saw in an antique shop once, which I'm still kicking myself about not buying immediately.
We saw Breaking Bad, the board game, at this convention. I really wish I'd picked that box up and had a good look at it, but I mean, what do you do in the Breaking Bad board game?
Well, I think you should
making crystal meth.
I had a look at the back. It's pretty much what you would expect.
So you are just making meth?
Amongst other things.
Right.
But yeah.
Trying to just sort of negotiate your way around various tense scenarios while making meth.
I was always disappointed that I didn't buy the Janet Ellis Ghostwatch board game that was in the charity shop next to me. I feel like that would be a...
You've lost me, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ghostwatch, as in the Halloween special from like 1990.
Well, I can't remember which of the many ghost-themed television shows.
That was the one-off.
Possibly, but
where Michael Parkinson gets possessed.
There's since then.
Green
I do remember
trapped in a glory hole.
But since then,
they call it a glory hole.
There have been, I know. There have been a number of other ghost hunting themed shows that are very popular on the lesser satellite TV channels, and also available on Freeview. And one of them is hosted by another former children's TV Blue Peter, in this case, presenter, Janet Ellis.
Right.
And there's a board game of it.
I should like to play that.
Anyway, that didn't feature in Tabletop Scotland.
No.
for some
No,
reason.
so we're kind of veering way off topic here.
Next time, though, or we'll be disappointed.
So yes, tell us, or how, I don't know, I'm confused now, but it has, like I say, it's been spelled two different ways in two different places. But we don't want to go too far into this game, because it would be unfair to do that, I think. But we had a good experience playing it. It was mainly a game about aliens landing on a planet or sending their robots to explore. And you were moving across different sort of coloured tiles and exploring these tiles, and some of these tiles had little gems in them, and you could mine those gems to get your points, and it was a case of first person to 20 points wins the game. But there was various little things you could do. You could buy little upgrades. At the start of every round, people would get a choice of various sort of upgrade points to spend that were in different colours. And there was other things you could do. You could blow tiles up using certain powers and really annoy people that way. But it was kind of like a race / area control game, because you were kind of racing to 20 points, and the further into the middle of the board you got, the more likely you were to get high scoring tiles. But at the same time, you wanted to have more people on a tile when a harvest happened, so that you got the gems for it. And like I say, we're not going to go too deeply into actually taking this game apart, because
it's still very much in development.
Yes, because it's all subject to change,
and
so there's not a lot of point in going too far into the ins and outs of how this particular version of the game worked.
Yeah,
but
I think they've got the backbone there, definitely.
It feels like there is something complete there.
Yeah, there's it's a playable game.
Yeah,
and it worked, and it was quite fun to play. And it was a good experience just play testing a game. I think it's something that we haven't got ourselves involved in before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good experience, and we were able to give feedback afterwards. And it was a pretty well run thing. Like the guys running that particular game were, and I think they were the designers as well, weren't they?
Yeah.
The designers of the game. They kept the game running for us, but they didn't try to hold our hand, because I think that was quite important, that if you're designing a game, you should be able to teach people how to play it and leave them to get on with it.
Yeah.
Because that's a good sign. If people can play through without getting confused, then yeah, that's a good sign for them. And we were able to. He ran us. I've completely forgotten his name, but he ran us through the first couple of rounds, but then let us play after that. And we were there for about an hour and a half or something like that, and I can't remember who won, but certainly wasn't me.
It was the other Dave.
Oh,
the
yeah,
other Dave. Yes, we played with another
Dave.
Dave, and the other Dave won.
Quite convincingly.
Quite convincingly, yes.
But that was because the four of us just went charged into the centre for a massive scrap, and very much ignored what other David was getting up to.
He had points ready to go, and we kind of just let him. And then we actually, by blowing up a lot of tiles, we blocked off access to them.
Yeah,
as well.
I did go a bit crazy with blowing up the tiles that were around him, just because I thought this is annoying me, how close he keeps getting to all the stuff that I'm trying to get. But yeah, I mean, I think the playtest thing was a good experience.
Yeah.
And something I'd definitely be up for doing again. I think the playtesting zone was pretty much run by Ian over the entire weekend, and I think it was pretty successful. It seemed that it was quite popular. There was always people sitting playing games there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems to have been done quite well. So good work, Ian.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Tell Us is by Natalia Zon, by the way, and I really enjoyed the experience of playtesting a game, because I've never done it before. So it was something new. It was very interesting being able to talk to the people who've designed the game, while you play it and asking them questions about it.
Yeah.
The only thing is you have to fill in a form immediately after you're finished, which is obviously
The feedback form.
that's quite.
You haven't had time to
That's
let it
very
digest.
important. Dave.
That is an important part of playtesting. You're not allowed to play test games without doing that. I find
We don't
out.
want to take that knowledge away with you. Just store it away in your brain. for
But
nobody to
you
know about.
do have to, while you're playing the game, try and formulate your thoughts on it while you're playing it. I was saying that I was chatting to Ian, and I was saying there needs to be a way that you can give your feedback at a later date as well, if you want. I mean, obviously you can get in touch directly with the designers of the particular game, but it would be nice if there was a...
You could just set up a website with a form or something.
Yes.
That you can go to, or they
Yeah.
give you a link to.
Because I'm not the greatest at coming up with these sorts of things on the hoof. Also, my writing is terrible. It's really, really, really bad.
Everybody uses these computers all the time now, David.
So I
Everyone's
just
a
kind of made some vague scribbles on the form. And I'm not sure if that will be of any use
You
to
hope
them.
you hope that conveyed how much you hated the game.
Well, I gave some constructive feedback.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Good.
Just to balance out Dave's nonsense.
I really liked this game.
But you're right. You're right, Dave. It was good to sit and chat to the designers of the game because because a couple of things that we had kind of said to them during and after the game, they were saying, yeah, well, we're thinking about changing this or whatever. So yeah, it was good to actually just sit and chat to somebody who is going through that process and knowing that, like, you know, if we were to play this game when it becomes a finished thing, it's probably going to be different from what we play tested.
Yeah.
You know, and what we did could very well have been an influence on that. So, so yeah, it's an important step in the design process, and I was quite happy to be a part of it. So yeah, that was fun. We went off for lunch after that.
Yes, we did.
That was
Well,
good.
we can't. I mean, we can't
that's-
mention where we went on a podcast. It would be sponsorship.
Yeah, it would be.
There'd be implications.
But lunch is an important part of the
Yeah.
day. You have to eat when you're at these things. I think that's
Aye.
really important.
Or you get sick.
People get angry.
Yeah, you get sick and angry.
Hangry, I think.
Yeah.
Is it hangry is the term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your hunger anger. Yeah, that happens. So,
Rage.
yeah, people get food rage. But when we came back, we kind of just floated about for a bit, and we were chatting to various other people. We met like the guys from the Unlucky Frog podcast. They took quite a big part in the weekend. They were running a couple of events on the Saturday. They did the big pub quiz, which was very much not for children, from what I've heard. And they did the D100+1, which was basically a board games version of Room 101, where they were basically convincing a panel of judges to put various things around. They had split it into 3 different things, and one of them was like game design, one of them was specific games. You know, convincing this panel of judges to put them into Room D100+1,
Alright.
as they were calling it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it was good.
good
I'm
theme.
kind of gutted I missed it.
I know,
Yeah.
because I know what you would have put in, maybe.
Is it Feudum by any chance?
No. That's what I would have put
I
in.
was about to have a look at that.
I'd have
box
put
over there.
Feudum in, then I got in and got it out again and put it back in again.
Hey, man, I'm kicking.
No, would you not have gone for Kickstarter backers on
Oh,
cards?
yeah, I would have.
See, and
I
you-
mean, if that, yeah, because I think that was possibly with the other thing that they did, which is general things. But
If this ever happens again, Chris, we need to make sure you're a
Kickstarter
guest on it.
backers' faces on cards.
Oh, yeah.
is definitely
See,
something that I would
perfect.
put in the
That
Room
would have been great.
D100+1.
It's a shame. Oh well.
We could just do our own one, and it'll just be Chris
Just be me getting very angry about
throwing
things.
things into Room 101.
So yeah, we met with the Unlucky Frog people. They seemed pretty cool. We also briefly met Meeples Like Us and Ross from More Games Please. We met them. They were playing a game of Chinatown at the end of the day. Had a bit of a chat with them, and I was kind of gutted that I hadn't gone and chatted to them 20 minutes earlier, because I really want to bloody play Chinatown. I have done for about 10 years or something. So yeah, it was pretty cool to meet them. But we went off and played a game that it's a couple of years old now. I vaguely remember it coming out a couple of years ago. But we picked it up and just said, well, we'll grab a game from the games library. We didn't have a lot of time left, so we grabbed something that wasn't going to take 2 hours or whatever. So we picked up a game called Covert, which was a sort of spy-themed game. but it's got very Euro mechanics, and it was the only game that sort of we just sat down and played without demoing anything or being involved in anything. It was just a game where we just sat and chilled out for a bit. And like I say, it's a spy themed thing, but it's one of these games where really what you're doing is just matching up symbols and things like that. It did have a very interesting mechanic in it with the code breaking, which I kind of liked. I thought that was a pretty cool little thing. Yeah. But the game is basically you're all playing as spies on a map of Europe, and you're given little quest cards, but the quest cards just have some sort of symbols on them, or they might have the name of a city or the colour of a region in Europe, so it's the maps being split into different regions. And you just basically had to make sure you had these things, and you picked these things up through... there were cards that basically had pictures of pocket watches or shoes, which had something hidden in the sole of them. Who knows what they're supposed to be? Some sort of circuit, yeah. USB sticks in your shoes.
It's the shoe radio.
Shoe radio. And there was guns and
binoculars,
credit
and cards,
spy things. Classic spy things. And you were just you could pick these things up by using your dice. So you would roll your dice, and there was action spaces at the top, and it was very much like Waggle Dance. This in the way it was done. So you would roll your dice, and there was various spaces at the top of the board where you could put your dice, and you went around the table, everybody placing one die at a time onto these spots. But there were only 6 spots, and they're numbered 1 to 6 on each action space. And the rule about that was that you could only put down a die that was 1 higher or 1 lower than a die that had already been placed. So once somebody puts a number down on the action spaces, everybody has to kind of take to follow that lead from there. So you can kind of use a wee bit of strategy to annoy people at certain times. So oh look, we're the only 2 people left, and we've both got 5s, and we both need to go into that space. So I'm jumping in there.
Yeah.
Once you went through that, there was then a code breaking part where there was a cool little thing, but it was 2 rows of numbers from 1 to 6, and they were completely random. And you had these little code cards, and they were like little number lock things.
Yeah, combinations.
Combination locks, yes. Everybody had those that had 3 numbers on. Each card had 3 numbers on, and you could try and line up the numbers on the board, the little tiles and numbers, by swapping the places of 2 tiles that were adjacent to each other. But also, if you'd put any dice in that space, you could put them on top of the numbers to change them to that number just for you. So that was pretty cool. I liked that aspect of the game.
It was good.
It was very confusing for some reason.
It was a source of some confusion.
It was a source of a lot of confusion.
More confusing for some players than others.
What are you saying,
I think we'd all got it by the end.
By the last round, I think everybody finally understood how the code breaking worked. I didn't see how it could be that difficult, to be honest. But if you manage to break a code on that turn, you get to turn over the card that had your combination lock number on it, and it would give you one of the things like a gun or a whatever.
Yeah, it was another way to get the symbols or the spy equipment that you needed in addition to the equipment cards or whatever it was they were called that you could just pick up with the dice placing, the dice worker placing mechanism.
Well, doing it for the points even was just worth it.
Well, that's right, yes.
Yeah, because you got 2 points for each one of those at the end of the game. But the way you mainly got points is doing your mission cards, and that was like Dave was saying, that's where your dice come in, because the 4 action spaces would let you pick up new mission cards. It would let you move your spies about the board so that they could be in the right places for completing your missions, or it would let you pick up some cards that were at the bottom of the board, which again had all the binoculars and watch and shoes and stuff on. As long as you
had to have a spy.
You had to have a spy in that
area,
region because they were colour coded.
Yeah.
So you're just moving your spies around, picking up these cards, and one of the other action spaces actually lets you complete missions. And your missions are all hidden behind a screen, so nobody can see what they are. I felt that screen was kind of unnecessary. I think it was just put in there for flavour, because you could really just keep your cards face down and look at them anytime you wanted.
It was nice. It was a nice touch.
It was a nice touch.
It wasn't too much to add to the game. It just didn't take up a lot of space.
No.
Yeah, I suppose some people might have liked to have their cards sitting face up. So
yeah, I suppose.
Depending on
you can do what you like.
Yeah, well, I had a particular system for keeping my stuff organised, because it was too much for me to contain in my head. Like, I can't remember what missions I've got and which ones I need for each one. So I was putting them in little piles once I'd sort of got close to completing them. So once I knew something was done, it was like a little pile ready to go. And then you just got to remember to put your dice on the complete the mission space.
Yeah.
Which wasn't always possible. That's one of the ones where having it competed can be an issue, because there's a limit to how many missions you can have on the go.
Yeah.
Which was quite critical too. And they had different points values, the missions. It was quite cool because some of them were worth more than others, because some of them gave you a permanent piece of equipment, or it could also be a permanent colour, and those ones were worth fewer points. I eventually figured out.
Yeah, because I didn't realise that either. I just didn't pay attention to how much points each card was worth. I was just going for, well, what mission can I complete?
Yeah.
Like, if I can do one thing, then what can I complete? You know. But I mean, it was a fun little game. It was, like you say, it's very similar to Waggle Dance, the B game. But other than that, it was just a game of just matching up symbols and the critical part of the game is, you know, playing your dice in the right spaces at the right time. And God, I did that so wrong on so many occasions. There were so many times where I was just kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, I can't complete missions if I don't put any dice in the complete mission space. So why am I even bothering with all this other stuff? But yeah, I mean, it was a solid game. It's the kind of thing I don't think I would pick it up, but mainly because I've got Waggle Dance anyway, and I get the kind of same feel to Waggle Dance. And I think Waggle Dance got a bit more depth to it.
They're a little bit different, and there's more strategic player interaction in Waggle Dance because you can more reliably predict what other players are trying to do. You've got very little way of knowing what another player is going to try and do in Covert, I think, because you can't see what missions they're doing.
That's
it's very difficult to tell what they're up to. So it's kind of a bit like it's almost like you roll your dice and then you prioritize getting them down. Like if you've got to complete the missions, then get that down first.
Yeah.
Whereas in Waggle Dance, you could definitely look at what other people were up to and look at what dice they had and have a bit of an idea of what they were going to go for. And Covert is pattern matching.
Yes.
And if you like that sort of thing, or like collection and matching things, and I guess it's a good example of that. You know, it's a bit like the Ticket to Ride. Completely different game, but in Ticket to Ride, you're like ticking off things. You've got your little route cards, and you're like trying to get them done. And there's that little burst of satisfaction once you've got one in the bank.
I mean, the thing is, I'm trying to limit the games that I own. So I'm not trying to slag off Covert or anything. It's just that I don't think I would pick it up because I think that Covert, the main mechanic in Covert is the dice rolling and placing them. That is the main mechanic, and it's the same mechanic, the main mechanic in Waggle Dance.
Sure.
And for me, Waggle Dance is a better game.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
well, you're making a judgment there based on your having too many board games.
That's the kind of judgments I have to make now, though, Euan. This is the point that my board gaming life has got to.
It's worrying.
I've got like more than... How many was that I said? Was it more than 200 I've got now?
Probably.
When I counted them all up, and I have to get rid of some of them. Like, it's causing me stress. I have to say, there's a pile sitting in the corner of the room right now that we're all staring at, and
all for sale, folks.
Yeah, all for sale. I'm gonna get them up for sale in some Edinburgh forum at some point, and then possibly put them out for sale in the wider audience. I'll probably have to. If anybody wants a copy of Feudum, it's here.
I don't want a copy.
You sure?
Like a copy so you can kick it out of a window.
But yeah, that was pretty much the last thing that we got up to, because time was running out. We left a little bit early because there wasn't too much point in us starting another game by the time we'd kind of finished with Covert and, you know, gone and chin-wagged with people for a little bit. So we left a wee bit early. I think we left at about 5 o'clock and the thing finished up at 6. But yeah, overall, it was definitely a good day. It was definitely worth going to. It was good to meet all the other sort of podcasting people. It was incredibly well run for a first convention. I mean, we've not really been to any big conventions before, but I can kind of understand how difficult it must be to pull this kind of thing off seamlessly, and it was pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Like there was no, I couldn't see any real problems at all with what was happening. I don't know if we mentioned, but there was also like various tournaments and stuff going on upstairs.
Oh yeah, there was all sorts of stuff.
There was all sorts of things going on.
RPGs
that we didn't
upstairs.
take part in. There was RPGs going on. There was a pandemic tournament going on. Carcassonne tournament at some point. I can't remember. There was various.
There was a number of
things
others. There was a 100 player game of Two Rooms and a Boom.
Yeah, 100 player game of Two Rooms and a Boom. Which I think we found out about too late. Otherwise, I probably would have gone and joined in because that would have been hilarious. But yeah, just like considering how many things had gone on, nobody seemed to have any complaints about anything that happened, and like for a first year convention, that's a really good bloody sign. That like, if I had tried to run that thing, it would be a nightmare.
It was slick.
Slick.
I was impressed.
So, what was your favourite part of the day, Euan?
I definitely liked Legends Untold. So I had to think about that there for a second.
Not Untold Legends.
Yeah, and yeah, I think I quite enjoyed the playtesting thing because that was definitely a totally new experience. It was interesting to see a game kind of being developed in its raw form.
Dave?
My favourite part of the game, part of the day was a game that I didn't play, called Rhino Hero.
You were really up for Rhino Hero, weren't you?
This game is amazing. I could only look at it jealously as little children played it in the Have a Family zone. I was just too scared to go in and ask for a shot of it without taking a small child with me. I would have had to go out in the streets and like find an urchin and give him a sixpence. Oh yeah.
Well, this is Perth, so you might want to watch.
They'd probably shine your shoes for you as well.
Well, they'd end up losing a sixpence. Oh yeah, it was a kids game, but it looked great. It was like
you build a tower.
You built a big tower of cards and put your rhinos on it, and like it would fall over, I think, at some point. And
because rhinos are known for going up towers.
But he's like, he's super rhino. He's like a hero. He can fly, and there were monkeys as well. I'm definitely going to check this game out. That was definitely. Also, there was Splendor was there in the gateway zone. So that was nice.
It was good to see it.
I went over. I did go over and clink the chips.
Yeah.
Did you actually do it?
Yes.
There was a lot of talk about you clinking the chips.
I did clink the chips,
and you just couldn't help yourself. Was it the good quality chips?
They're not as good as they used to be, but they're still.
It's good that you've got the classic.
They're still okay though.
Hopefully, we'll do a better a review of that at some point that's more to your liking. We'll talk less about Brown Jewels.
Splendor, 20 years on. Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. Like you say, it was a well-run, impressively smooth affair. 10 out of 10 would go again.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I hope it is on next year. I'd like to try and do the full weekend.
I was thinking of ways that we could possibly get more involved in it, and I've got some fiendish ideas in my head, which I will run past you after this episode goes out, because I don't want anybody to steal this idea. All right.
Keep it quiet.
In case any of those other podcasters are listening. But my favourite part of the day was Legends Untold, I have to say. It was the very first thing that we did. I was so impressed by that game, and just generally the quality of it for a game that they haven't even manufactured yet, and they were saying that the quality is going to get better because they're actually upgrading like the card stock and those kind of things as well. I really enjoyed that, and I also only half enjoyed listening to Dave saying, "I want to go and play Rhino Hero."
I did say it quite a lot.
I quite liked it.
Well, I was hoping like the three of you would go, all right, we're all going to go in together, and then you won't feel embarrassed.
I didn't realise you were so embarrassed about the children.
Well, there were literally, it was only kids.
Yeah, no, I did notice that. I mean, I had body swerved the whole thing. I didn't want to get involved with any of these children.
I mean, what did you want us to do, Dave? Just go in and sweep all the children away and go, sorry, the adults are playing now.
So could we not have pretended we were like from a publisher? Oh, it's already got a publisher. I don't know.
Well, we could all put on shades and be like, we're from a big publisher. We want it.
Well, what we could have done, Dave, is pretended we're from a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but anyone can pretend they're from a podcast.
That's
We
true.
had press passes.
Oh, that's true, we
That's
did.
true. You could have.
We
Even
could've
if
just
you
made an
hadn't had
excuse.
press passes, you had lanyards. It's almost good enough in some circles.
Okay, right, I think...
Can I just say I quite liked when Ian got stung by some kind of insect.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Our friend Ian getting stung by some sort of insect, which he thinks might have been a wasp, but he wasn't sure, and I think he was just dramatising it, to be
That
honest.
was the only thing that went wrong at that entire convention, actually, if you think about it.
That's actually true.
Yeah, so that's probably a pretty good sign.
There was a good bump behind his ear that was nice and red. That's actually, now that I think of it, that was my favourite part of the day. Ian being stung.
He got stung this summer.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to wrap the episode up there. So that was our big Tabletop Scotland episode.
Yeah.
So just a massive congratulations to Dave and his team for putting that together, and thank you very much for our passes and just running the weekend so well. It was just incredible. I think we will be back next year for definite. So we'll give out all our internet stuff. If you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. That's FIRST. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. That's at 1STPlayerToken for Twitter.
Once player token.
Thank you, Euan. Dave had to do it last week.
No.
He's going to have to step in and take your place on the video games episodes for these.
Well, we can't let
chatting about
Pavel do it.
Well, that was exactly what I said. You can't let Pavel get away with this kind of nonsense. You can find all our episodes go up on SoundCloud, but you can subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher, and quite a lot of these are podcasting places. We have a YouTube, we have a PSN community, we have a Discord, which is discord.me/firstplayertoken. We have a shiny new Twitch, which we will be playing some board games on at some point in the near future, I think. You can find us twitch.tv/1STPlayerToken. And we are part of the Podnose Network.
The UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
I've missed you, Euan.
Yeah, well, that was quite enjoyable. It felt good on my throat.
Dave couldn't give us any news on the Podnose Network.
Oh,
last
right.
week,
Well,
so-
to be honest, neither can I.
All right, well, that's
I've-
fine. But
I've
it's
not done a lot
fine
of
coming from
podcasting.
you, though, because at least then we know.
Yeah. I'm an authority on not knowing anything.
Careful. What have I told you about claiming that we're an authority?
Oh, well, I quite like doing it because
Because it upsets people. Okay, if you
I
want
mean,
to
it
go...
should be taken as a tongue-in-cheek thing when it's us saying it.
Well, this is what I tried to explain to this person, but I don't think they were having it. If you want to check out the Podnose Network, you can go to podnose.com. There is a large variety of podcasts on there, and they're all pretty good. So check that out. We will be back next week with our video games episode. I'm sure Pavel will return and join us.
He's itching to get back. I think he's a wee bit miffed that he's missed this whole
I think he's a bit miffed. But it's his own fault.
It is.
chasing the almighty dollar.
Well, on that note, see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.